Okay, we are back. Our next presenter. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is David Ellzey. David, are you ready to present?
I am. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Is my screen shared?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great.
And your
Okay,
10
great.
minutes starts now.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everybody. I'm David Ellzey, CEO of Torque3, and we are developing a neuro rehabilitation solution that we believe will result in significantly better recovery outcomes. There's been a wealth of research over the last 30 years that's strongly indicated that stroke recovery can be significantly improved through immersive stimulation and robotic assistance. And our system simply leverages this research with what I consider as an uncompromising design and implementation. Now, the Torque3's the most important advantage is that we use intense, deeply immersive, task-oriented therapy to enhance neuroplasticity. You see, the Torque3 platform is a robotic-assisted simulator where the patient works their entire body along with all of their senses and cognitive abilities during treatment. This experience-dependent multimodal integration engages functional brain regions, including the sensory, association, and motor cortexes. Now, we accomplish this with a suite of simulation technologies that operate as an integrated system using our proprietary hardware and software. The entire platform is computer controlled and all the mechanical functions of robotics. Now, what you see in this video of our prototype is, what you can't see is how it feels. There's all the subtle G-forces from each turn, bump, even texture of the ground is felt through the body, pedaling, and steering. Even the simulated wind smells like a redwood forest. The feedback from our server robotics is so responsive, you can even feel the weight and inertia in the simulation. The riders ease off the pedals, they're convinced that they're coasting down the hills. And this is all to say that it doesn't feel like you're pedaling a stationary bike. It feels like you're pedaling the real thing. Now, our other prime advantage is that we will completely mitigate the effects of hemiplegia, our hemiparesis during therapy. Our advanced robotics will assist impaired patients' accessibility into and out of the platform, and the motor system will instantly compensate for lateral imbalance between limbs, delivering a smooth experience as if the patient were not impaired. Our goal is really simply to make the patient feel whole again during therapy. Now, a quick rundown of our other advantages includes injury protection against accidental overexertion, also using our advanced robotics, and integrated pain management using the deep immersion you saw. Now, we're a unified treatment platform combining the treatments for lower body, upper body, grip, visual recognition, and cognitive into a single multimodal session. And our high level of automation supports streamlined operations by enabling a rapid turnaround of patients between sessions and a single therapist to manage multiple patients simultaneously and automatically producing detailed progression reports. Not only are we the only solution to offer any of those advantages, but we'll be the first to implement truly objective progression data with over 20 million points of data recorded per session. Now, Torque3 recognizes our platform has broad application, even in markets outside of rehab, but our initial focus is stroke rehabilitation, as stroke is the leading cause of disability across the world, with a study 80 million stroke survivors globally. This year, here in the US, there'll be over 700,000 new stroke survivors joining the 7 million we already have in recovery. Now, these folks, they're looking at months, years, or even a lifetime of rehabilitation. Yet, the current medical model for neurorehabilitation that centers on modality-specific functioning has fewer than 10% of stroke survivors achieving a level of outcome that allows them to resume living an active, independent lifestyle. Now, this approach to rehabilitation, which is heavily reliant on repetition therapy, hasn't changed much in over 50 years, so we shouldn't be surprised that the most common equipment used for this treatment hasn't improved either. The standard equipment is mostly comprised of some type of stationary bicycle or handrail device. And one could even make the case that this status quo for neurorehabilitation has statistically and objectively failed stroke survivors. And it's why the market is ripe for disruption. And it's where Torque3 can make a profound difference. Now, our unique approach has yielded all those advantages we previously covered, which gives us some remarkable benefits. Patients should not only achieve significantly better outcomes, but will improve compliance by making therapy the best part of their day. And even though our patients have individualized treatment plans, they can receive the same quality of care regardless of where they go. Therapists will be less prone to injury out on the job while reducing tedious tasks out on the floor and behind the desk. Instead, they'll be able to focus on rewarding skills-based work. Clinics will be able to double, if not triple, the number of patients that they can service without any increase in staff or expanding their floor space. Now, of the 7 million stroke survivors in the United States, only 28.5% are still under coverage for their extended rehabilitation. Insurance payments for those outpatient stroke rehabilitation averages $12,000 a year per patient. Even so, this small fraction still results in a market size of over $24 billion the insurance providers pay out strictly for stroke neurorehabilitation services. Now, our initial target is the 5,000 clinics practicing neurorehabilitation in the United States, including about 200 inpatient clinics at comprehensive stroke centers. And even though our platform reduces costs and increases throughput for these clinics, our discoveries indicate that our rehab facility customers have resistance to any significant upfront expenditures on major equipment purchases. This is largely due to the prevailing clinical business model with its high staffing costs, which severely constrains equipment budgets. So to disrupt this entrenched market, we'll be implementing a revenue share program to install units in rehab facilities with a small upfront fee. And as such, Torque will be able to carry the initial risk, but with an average recurring revenue of about $150,000 per unit per year, we hit 100% ROI on the cost of each unit in only 3 months. Now, not only do we have an outstanding executive team, but we've been able to attract just a phenomenal pool of talent of engineers and creatives to our company in the last few months. Since March, we moved our company from the Bay Area out to Utah and have, after a $1 million raise in pre-seed, and we're looking to do an interim raise of another $600,000 in the next few weeks that will be able to get us to market in an initial pilot program. Our total raise to date is about 1.6 million. We don't have exact terms on the $600,000 raise, but if you're interested in it, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk about connecting you once we start this raise. Available for questions.
Judges?
That was great, David. Really interesting. So just a few questions. So who is using this now? You say you have this already deployed in rehabs?
No, we have it in-house only.
Okay.
So we're just doing internal testing. I purposely did not show the latest prototypes. The prototypes you saw were the previous prototype, but just because we're announcing them in September, we're showing in them in September, so we're sort of holding back on being able to show everybody what we've done.
And in terms of the your endpoint, like when you start doing research on it, what's going to be your endpoint, your measure? Because you have people now doing the traditional rehab. When you go to market, how are you going to? What are the measurements that you're going to look at that's going to be different? Like, is it back to activity? I mean, how difficult is it to have? What are your outcome measurements going to be with this?
Well, as you know, brain injury is all over the place. As far as what the injury causes. So in sensory motor recovery, we will be we will be measuring per session, and that data is available to the therapist, and they'll be able to do a comparison as they go. We do still recommend that they do a comparison using the traditional methods. They're very subjective, but they're tried and true. So although we're doing cognitive testing during the sessions, so we have that data to report back, we still recommend that they fall back onto the others, at least for the first half year or so, before we can validate, have the comparison between the two. But I think over time, there'll be no need to do secondary testing. The systems themselves, like I said, that we're starting out with 200 million points of data for a typical session. That's only going to rise. And that's going to be, the analysis on that should be pretty clear versus a subjective analysis of having somebody say walk 10 feet or sit down or stand up and you're measuring it with a stopwatch, those types of things. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
I had a related question. I'm also like curious. I know you don't know yet because you have not tested, but do you have a hypothesis of what you are hoping or what you are targeting when compared to traditional rehabilitation? And I know like we are like, it's almost like looking into crystal ball, but you are developing the device with certain vision. So I'm trying to see what it is. And I'm also curious about your timeline, which it may be contingent on the funding probably, but if you could give us approximate.
Sure. We'll be going into market, starting our pilot program in December. I'm going to ask your last question first, the easy one. So we're going into market in December on a limited pilot program, growing to a total of 50 machines. Once we are comfortable with those machines, we'll commercialize, raise a Series A round. And we'll go to market in mass. Our goal is not to put a few of these in a small number of critical care facilities around the nation. We're not looking at just hitting the comprehensive stroke centers or the big universities that can get the funding. Our business model carries in a way to where every small, I call them mom and pop rehab centers, but they're, you know, that I don't, just to give a picture of it, but there's 5,000 of these around the US. That is where the majority of people are getting their rehabilitation, and they can't afford this equipment if I were to sell it. So we have the revenue share model that allows us to carry the cost of the equipment while they pay on a per use basis. And that's how we'll get it out there in mass and how we plan to move forward.
Shubhra Jain, our third judge, asks, can you speak more about your competitive moat? What's your advantage?
Well, despite all the electromechanical portions to what we're doing, almost everything we're really doing is software. It would be difficult to replicate what we're doing in quickly. And so we do have a bit of a buffer between us and any follow-on competitor. Besides that, you know, all the normal intellectual property, putting out our IP protection so that anybody trying to copy our software still has to, they don't know if they're actually replicating what we're doing. So there's a lot of large risk on them when we call them out on it and have a third party review the two sets of software to see if they accidentally did the same thing as our IP. But yeah, so there is a physical part to it. We do hide a lot of what we're doing, some of our tricks in the electromechanical, but most of what our IP is involves software, and that should provide us a fairly large moat to establish the brand. But after that, I mean, you know, anybody can reverse engineer anything once it's on the market. So that's just a reality.
Okay, our judges, are you ready to vote?
Yeah.
Great. All right, thanks, David.